Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and I'm not the only Bostonian on today's episode because I am joined by a guest that I'm so excited to go deep into her entrepreneurial journey because I think she epitomizes so much of what it means to be an entrepreneur. She is fighting to have legislation changed in her state of South Carolina. She is a mom. She's got so much going on, and through all that, she finds a way to do influential work that is meaningful to people in her community, people who she gets to make a difference to. So let me just tell you about today's guest. Her name is Jackie Carleen. Prior to founding her company, Mindful Doggo, which we're going to talk about a lot today, Jackie was an auditor for one of the top 5 global accounting firms and a financial consultant at a national entrepreneurial leadership organization in the Boston, London, and New York markets. Disillusioned by the corporate grit, so many of you listeners, I'm sure you relate to that part of her story, and a lack of passion for the day-to-day operations, she's used her interest for neuropsychology and animal services and her business acumen to create a dog training business in South Carolina that helps people and dogs navigate their beautiful but complex life together. Jackie has trained with service and family pet dogs and has found one thing to be true regarding all dogs and all humans. We all need help to settle, calm our inner thoughts, and be present. So on that note, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm so excited. Let's dive straight into my interview with Jackie Carleen. All right, Jackie, I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I'm excited as well.
Heck yeah, so much to go into. Honestly, I love covering entrepreneurial stories. Yours is particularly attractive to me because of your background, because of the deep and meaningful work that you're doing, and also because it seems like you've got the spirit, the hustle of an entrepreneur. So I'm excited to dive into all of it. But give listeners the background beyond just your bio. How the heck did you end up here?
Yeah, well, I will say the entrepreneur in me is not natural. I definitely have had to learn that. I started with accounting, learned so much, and I'm really grateful for all the experience I gained. But it just wasn't for me. My shoulders were to my ears with stress, and I just decided, what if I worked this hard for myself and doing something that I was passionate about? And so I just decided to take on dog training. But quickly learned that passion and inclination towards something does not mean you're good at it. So I really had to get the education, the experience. I even moved markets from Boston to South Carolina. I had gone to school here, but moved markets to save on cost of living and just kind of roll up my sleeves and try to learn and start this very humble business. And 2 years later, it's just starting to pick up momentum. So there's been a lot of struggles along the way and really just having to pick myself up and keep myself going, even if you don't see tangible progress. And I say tangible because you do get the intangibles of learning what doesn't work and what does, but just kind of believing in yourself and believing in what you're doing and still persevering and going through.
Yes, Jackie, I love that overview because it fits in so much with a theme of our content here in 2023 has been openly acknowledging the real stuff. This stuff is hard and it does take time, and everyone wants to believe the opposite, but you are living proof. I am living proof. Every entrepreneur's story is living proof that those two things are true. It takes time and it is hard. So I want to dive deeper into that part of your story because I can't imagine, obviously I'm originally from the Boston area as well. I can't imagine one of us Bostonians who went to a good school, who had a good job, just sitting there thinking, I'm going to leave all this. So obviously I can imagine it now that I'm saying it out loud because I'm like, that was totally where I was at mentally as well. But walk us through your thought process then. What was that transition like? I almost want to ask you, Jackie, I'm going to throw this in here because I want all of it from you today. What was that catalyst? Because I know what it feels like to have those golden handcuffs of a good job, but something inside of you said, no, enough is enough. It's time to do this.
Yeah, so I was sort of disillusioned with the just the nature of what I was doing with auditing because you're looking at financials and you're trying to make sure that they are properly stated. However, the person that you are double checking is paying you at the end of the day. And so it's this this push and pull of the integrity of what you're doing. And I think I was pretty disillusioned by that. I had worked on a job where it was an 80-hour week, and then it was 90 the next week, and then 100. And I was really just low on fumes. And on a personal note, my nephew had been diagnosed with brain cancer. It was something that we found out the day that we found out he had cancer. He had to be operated on because it was a tumor that was blocking the cerebral fluid in his brain. And I just was kind of in awe that I didn't have the leniency or the human connection with people that I had worked with to give me a day or two to cope with that. And I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I just decided this isn't for me, and I want to do something that I believe in, and I want to start my own organization where I can, really hone in on the human aspect of working together with people.
Yeah, Jackie, that is such an important answer for everyone to hear, because it really is. For me, when we talk about entrepreneurship, a lot of people want to talk about marketing tactics and sales strategies and all of that, but it really is that human element. I've been reminded of that so much throughout my entire life. Listeners have to hear me talk about my niece and nephew all the time, so I totally relate to you in that part of your story. Walk us through that transition. So obviously you're growing disillusioned, things in life happen, and it really gives us that opportunity to reflect and introspect and take that wide look back. What was it like? Take me to day one of starting your business. What did you do? What were you thinking? I want to hear all that.
In the beginning, it was really exciting. I have all this momentum. I'm so excited with what I am doing. The future is so bright. It's mine for the taking. And then I quickly learned that I had been doing accounting for 5 years plus, and it was something that I had confidence in and a lot of experience in. And learning the dog training world, I went from a very respected professional title to a dog trainer, which really isn't. And it was very humbling. At certain points, I was shoveling poop and thinking to myself, I have a master's degree and tons of experience. I'm making peanuts. What am I doing with my life? But I'm really glad that I kept going through that. On a side note, I think that if you are going to start your own business, you should have done the tasks that you're going to ask somebody else to do. So I don't have a brick and mortar yet, but I am hoping to have a brick and mortar at some point, and I will be asking somebody to shovel poop. And the fact that I've done that already, I think is important because I know psychologically how it feels to do that task. I also know what works and what doesn't in that policy procedure of doing that. So I think that's important for people to to gain experience that you maybe think you're better than, but to just roll up your sleeves and do it.
Yeah, really good advice there and perspective. Jackie, I'm going to call you out right now and give you so much credit for something that you just shared with us, because you acknowledge what I think we need to acknowledge more in the entrepreneurial world, which is excitement was super high at the beginning. And I did an episode about this, I think it was probably 2 years ago now, where I talked about uninformed optimism. Everything's exciting when we don't know how hard it is. And so we do bring that optimism. But what I want to give you credit for is that even when that weaned off, which it did, it's inevitable. It happens to every single one of us. You persisted. And what I've noticed about, especially the entrepreneurs, yes, listeners, I'm calling so many of you out, is that when that initial excitement wears off, what do? You jump to another idea or another venture because it gives you that full-on effect of that dopamine again. Jackie, talk to us about that persistence that you found. I often find some people, it's a quote, a philosophy, a life lesson, something that motivates them to get through that tough period. What was it for you?
Yeah, I definitely listen to a lot of motivational podcasts and YouTube videos of entrepreneurs that have stuck it out. But I also think what was really vital for me was just venturing off into different branches of animal services. And so legislation, also going to dog events and meeting other dog trainers, getting into the network of that. I partnered with a yoga studio and put on a class with them. So ways to just kind of freshen up my perspective and make me feel like I'm doing something different, and something that's helping me kind of move towards my goal.
Yeah, I'm going to call it out for listeners. Listeners, see how Jackie stopped looking inward and she started looking outward. She started surrounding herself, whether it was digitally through YouTube videos, podcasts, or in person, going to events. Jackie said, I'm going to put myself out there. And that's really where you start getting that momentum back and where you really start growing, whether it challenges you, whether you learn new things. Jackie, I'm sure you've experienced all aspects of that cycle that I want to talk about. But yeah, it makes sense to me as someone who loves the business that you're operating today, Mindful Doggo. I can see how those started becoming the building blocks for you doing things differently. We don't often hear about dog trainers partnering up with yoga studios. Talk to us about some of what shaped that different approach, because I do think what you're doing, and I want you to explain it to listeners, I think it's very different from what most traditional dog trainers are doing.
Yeah, I think I struggled a lot with not having a lot of experience and trying to figure out how I differentiate myself in the market. And a lot of dog training is dogs mirror our energy, and they look to us for support. And so when you have a dog that is quote unquote bad, a difficult dog, your anxiety can go through the roof. I personally had a foster dog that I learned this with. She was essentially feral. She lived outside for 5 years, was used for breeding, possibly tethered outside from how she reacted to being on a leash. And so I still live with her to this day. It's been 1.5 years of me training her. And I just really got to understand how it feels and how stressful it is to live day to day with a dog that you really don't want to give up on. But it really does test your patience. And so that really made me turn towards mindfulness, yoga, deep breathing, somatic resilience techniques. And turns out it started working with my dog, who was very fearful, that she started to actually relax. And so I thought, wow, I'm onto something. And then I started to do the research, and there actually is research that backs all of this up, that this works. And so for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. People bond with their dogs by doing this stress relief activity together.
Yeah, and I particularly enjoy hearing you talk about the nature of the way that you approach this stuff, because for me, what I think about, not just in terms of, so I'm not a dog owner, but gosh, everybody in my family loves dogs. My sister is actually a vet, and she's been on the show before as well. People have heard her story, but when I see that, I see one part of it is how deeply impactful it is. It's a big part of their lives. But then two, what I think about is the messaging that comes with it, because we're talking about an emotional field. We're talking about where people have that deep emotional connection with their pet, whether it's a dog or something else. And Jackie, what I can't help but think about as an entrepreneur is the messaging that goes along with it, because it is part logic. It is part, hey, here's how I put together sales and marketing strategies, but it is part emotion. How has your messaging changed along your years of running this? I would imagine that at first you didn't have that ironed out, but I'm sure that now it's starting to take shape. The more reps that you get in, the more clients you work with. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning, and I launched a website, and I think I just wasn't clear on, there were so many thoughts, and it was hard for me to really narrow it down. And I launched a website, and I thought leads were going to come through the door once I did, and I got crickets. And it really took, I think, fine-tuning this aspect of relaxing and settling, because I think it's something that people understand, especially those that have reactive or problematic dogs. But I struggled a lot with the messaging, because there are so many different ways that you can take dog training and evoke that emotion. And it took a lot of trial and error. I would show up to an event and I would have a booth and not one person would sign up because I think that I just wasn't clear on how to market myself. And I do want to add that if you are a solopreneur, it's very difficult sometimes to market yourself and to say how amazing your product or service is. And so I struggled a lot with that, and getting somebody outside of me to help me with the marketing has been monumental, because it kind of takes the pressure off of feeling like I'm bragging in a way.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much, because you're right. It is. I'm glad that you use the word bragging, because that's what I mentally internally think about. And it is something, because a lot of us, we don't want to be out there bragging. We also kind of feel an obligation to brag a little bit so other people see how awesome we are. So it is that fine balance. And I love hearing your perspective on that, especially because you said when you launched your website, you thought it would just be raining clients. Talk to us about that, whether it's a story about an interesting background to how you got your first client, or something particularly memorable about, hey, this is the reality of how I'm going to go get paying clients. What did you learn there?
I tried so many things. I did a couple pet-centric vendor events where I got a booth. I quickly learned that those people that are coming with their dogs, they're not really interested in training. They already think that their dog is amazing and they don't really need the help. I've also quickly learned that people don't like you to approach them in public with their dog and ask them if they want your services. It's kind of like seeing an overweight person out in public and asking them if they want your services as a personal trainer. It's offensive. Dogs are like kids to people, and so definitely don't do that. If anybody's listening that's a dog trainer, do not ask people out in the wild if they need help with their dog. I did paid social ads that I didn't hear anything back from. I thought those would pay off. I paid for ads. I went to veterinarian offices and passed out business cards, heard nothing back from them. So I've really done quite a lot where I thought, this is it, this is going to pay off, and it just didn't. I think I would credit, I started doing some pitches for articles, and that kind of gave me this authority on what I was talking about with dog training, and so that's been really helpful. If anybody has heard of Help a Reporter Out, HARO.com. That is a wonderful tool where reporters will ask questions and seek information from people. And so I would just pitch these, and it does take a lot of time, but once you get somebody to accept your pitch, then you have the backlink for the SEO and you get the authority, you get to put it on your social media. So that I think was really helpful to start to get a little bit of credibility. And then it really was just word of mouth through people constantly telling them what I was doing, getting a little bit of authority by working with service dogs. And from there, I just started getting some more clients.
Yes, a huge actionable tip from you right there, Jackie. I love that you called out Help a Reporter Out. That was one of our Action Saturday episodes last month, and it's because it's free. Every single entrepreneur, if you're looking for publicity, literally free PR, get on helpareporterout.com. They just send it directly to your inbox. You can ignore the emails, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to pop in there because Jackie reminded me the power of this, and you can start replying to inquiries. So Jackie, I love that strategy there. I want to ask you about inflection points, because obviously you've walked us through, I love how much you hustled through all of these things and saw results, didn't see results, kept trying new things. What was the inflection point? What was the part in your business where you started saying, whoa, people are talking about me. People are referring to people to me. People are actually coming my way for a change instead of me chasing them. What brought that inflection point? Was it a lucky moment? Was it a lucky press feature? What was it?
I think it has been attributable to the dog that I was fostering, because I would show my own struggles as a dog trainer with this dog, and I just started to see this gap in the market of dog owners that have dogs with anxiety. And a lot of dog trainers will give kind of some cookie cutter generic advice. And it just doesn't cut it for a lot of dogs. And so I just found this niche market opportunity with the anxiety dogs and, quite frankly, people with anxiety. Sometimes when we have anxiety or depression, we're drawn to animals because they give us that unconditional love and support through the good times and the dark times. And so that has been crucial to my business.
Yeah, and it seems to me like another aspect of your business that, I don't know if this is just you by nature, your personality is you love going all in this manner, but it seems to me like for you, the industry at large is also near and dear to your heart. I think it's fascinating what you're doing as someone who's into politics as an observer, for sure not as a participant, but as an observer, I think that politics is such an interesting arena because it does enact change or doesn't enact change based on the things that we want. Talk to us about the legislation that you're working towards. That's no small feat and no small task, Jackie, but it's important to you. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on that.
Yeah. As I was in these dog trainer groups, Facebook groups, I started to realize that there are a lot of trainers out there that don't necessarily follow modern science. They are self-learned and they just have experience. And not to get too much into the details of the dog training aspect, but essentially they punish or shut the dog down. And so they're just suppressing their emotions. And you think that you have fixed the problem. However, you haven't. You've just shut them down. And other problem behaviors are going to pop out from suppressing that behavior, like anxiety and possibly aggression. And so 8 million dogs enter shelters every year. Of those 8 million, about 3 million are placed there because of behavioral issues at home. And so it's very important to me that people know that even though they think that they're training their dog, the dog trainer might not be using modern science and compassionate tools and techniques. And so I'm working hard to get legislation passed that would require some kind of licensing for dog trainers so that you know that they are certified, they're competent, and they live under a ethical umbrella. But also I'm trying to ban aversive tools like e-collars, prong collars, and choke, which are already banned in several countries like Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. There are quite a few already. And in the United States, New York is actually trying to pass legislation regarding this. And so it's very near and dear to my heart. I hate to see that dogs are suffering, but I hate even more that a consumer might think that they're doing the right thing and they have no idea how inhumane the tactic is. And so I just wrote to all of the representatives in South Carolina, and nobody responded to me except for one representative. And I've actually been working with him to get some verbiage down so that we can try to be a leader in getting legislation down for dogs in South Carolina. South Carolina is rarely, if ever, a first mover with these sorts of things, but I think it would be pretty awesome if we could start.
Yeah, Jackie, super deeply meaningful and important work that you're doing there. And I love how much you look at, like I said, not just the industry, but you're looking forward. How can we make this better? Which leads me to, I want to ask you about this. I can't believe I haven't asked you this yet. We're so deep into today's session, but I want to talk about your forward-looking growth plans because you've learned so much. And I think it's so generous of you to share so transparently and freely with listeners here today. I so appreciate that about you. But when it comes to your growth plans, I find that different entrepreneurs have different beliefs on it. Some have a 10-year plan, which in my head, I'm like, who knows what the world's going to look like in 10 years? I don't even know what my 10-year plan would look like. What's your thought? You've already said to us one day you'd love to have a brick and mortar. What are those thoughts, strategies, plans that you've put in place for where you want to go from here?
Yeah, I really want to have a brick and mortar. I'd love to open up a couple locations and kind of work out the kinks and make sure that I can duplicate what I've built here. And then I would love to franchise. I am a huge proponent for being an owner and not an operator, so I don't want to be working day to day in the operations. I'd love to kind of pass the baton off and be involved still on a certain level, so that's why franchise and not just sell. But I would love to allow others to pick up this business and spread the good word.
Yeah, gosh, I can't let you go without going deeper into that, because obviously you've learned so much about it, but also in your business, your days of in corporate, working in business at all different levels, I'm sure you've seen an element of that. Talk to us about the owner versus operator model and how that factors into the way that you think about your business, not only today, but obviously you shared a little bit with us about in the future as well.
Yeah, well, I will reiterate that I think that before you become an owner, you really should be an operator. And so I think that you should have a certain baseline respect for anything that someone's going to do for your business. And so I think you should start all the way from the bottom. If you're going to own a restaurant, you should be working back of house, front of house, and know exactly what you're asking of others. But in order to make the macro level decisions and think ahead for the growth, I mean, right now, I definitely can't think 10 years ahead because I'm so in the weeds. And so hiring the right people to take over the day-to-day operations, and that takes a lot of training, which I've already had that mindset as I've started. I'm creating policies and procedures. I have guides that are easy to share with somebody to teach them how to do what I'm doing. And so I think that's important to think ahead of how can I pass off what I'm doing to somebody else so that I make room for myself to make bigger decisions and grow this thing even bigger.
Yes, listeners, don't let that advice go over your head or pass you right now. Start creating those SOPs, those standard operating procedures. Even if it's just you and your business, have that longer term view. You already hear the way that Jackie's thinking about that, and I love that you're sharing that with us. Jackie, we're racing to the end of this episode. I do not want to let you go just yet. There's more that I want to squeeze out of you. And with that in mind, I want to say congratulations. You welcomed your daughter into the world 2 months ago, and that's such an exciting time. Jackie, I want to hear your perspectives on that, because I know for some entrepreneurs, starting a family, building a family, whatever else, maybe they're a caretaker. There's so many different things that come up in life. And for some people, it's the thing that holds them back. But I love your attitude about this. Is you wrote in your questionnaire ahead of today's session, you wrote, where is it? Because I thought your wording was just so perfect. You wrote, having a child is just another layer of motivation to get the business going. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think that sometimes your motivation needs to be something outside of yourself. And so for me with the dog training business, definitely like helping other dogs, other dog owners has been a big theme to keep me going. But I also think that having a child just gives you something outside of yourself to work for. I want to do something that she's proud of someday. I want to leave her with a legacy. I want to leave her with a little bit of money. And so I think that it does give you that extra layer of motivation. Sometimes it's easy to give ourselves excuses if we feel tired, or I'm okay with kind of settling for XYZ. But I do think when you have something outside of yourself that motivates you, it makes you step up to the plate and really knock it out of the park. And I think that having a business really does help you. You can take it fast or slow. And so it can be flexible. Right now, I'm not working during the daylight hours, Monday through Friday, but I am working evenings and I am working weekends. And I think that that's a really cool part of having your own business is you can be flexible and you can make it work for your schedule.
Yes, so well said. And again, Jackie, I'm going to continue giving you credit here on the air because I think it speaks to so many of your traits, persistence being chief among those, that you make it work. You always find a way to make it work. And I so respect and admire that about you. Gosh, here we are towards the end. I don't even know how to summarize today's episode because we did talk about so many different ingredients of your entrepreneurial journey that are true of every entrepreneurial journey. And Jackie, to me, one of your strengths is that mindset that has helped you persist through the first 2 years of having your business, through what led up to you starting your business. So I'm going to give you the tough part of today's episode. And what's an action that you want listeners to take from here? Having heard all of these things, what's your best tip, your best strategy, the best action that everyone should do to move their business forward?
I think just try something different, even if it scares you. In terms of like marketing, even, film yourself doing a video or speaking about a topic that you are knowledgeable about, host a seminar, tap some local business and try to partner with them, maybe even branch off into legislation or trying to make some change in the community. I think just try something new that kind of opens and expands your experience with what you're doing. And you might just stumble upon something that is the key to your business's growth.
Yes, such good advice there. I think that advice never stops following us through our entrepreneurial journey. I think at any stage of business, it's always great to keep trying new things. Jackie, you've been such an example. That's the word that I want to use with you right now, is that the things that we've talked about today, they're things that you've done. They're things that you continue to do. And so on that note, I know that listeners are going to be keen to check out more about the work that you're doing with Mindful Doggo, to follow you personally in your own entrepreneurial journey. So the stage is yours. Drop some links on us. Where should people go to follow all this great stuff that you're up to?
Yeah, so mindfuldoggo.com if you want to work with me. But my email is jackie@mindfuldoggo.com. And if anybody wants to talk about dogs or legislation, how you can pass legislation in your local area, if you want to work with me, anything at all, jackie@mindfuldoggo.com. I'd love to connect and chat.
Yes, listeners, you all know the drill. We are dropping those links down below wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. I just want to say, definitely check out mindfuldoggo.com because Jackie's website is fun. When you go there, first things first, this is not her first rodeo when it comes to podcasting. She's been out there sharing her views on how dogs impact human relationships. You'll find that on her website. You'll find training tips. You'll find calming techniques. There's so much good stuff on there, of course, in addition to her socials. So definitely check the show notes to find mindfuldoggo.com. We're also going to link to Jackie's personal LinkedIn if you just want to send her a note and say thank you. She shared so generously, so transparently with us here on today's episode. So Jackie, on behalf of all the listeners and myself, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.
Thanks, Brian.